All right, folks. Thank you for coming to Real Progressives today. This is Steve Grumbine. Today, we're going to talk about immigration. I'm going to ask you before we get started to put your partisan allegiances aside, to put your all the stories you've heard from yesteryear aside, and I want you to just take a moment to think with me about this subject before we get too far. Because we're going to hear an awful lot of things. We're going to hear a lot of passionate, emotional pleas from everyone. We're going to see a lot of suffering. We're going to see a lot of nationalism, a lot of stuff that's going to make you embarrassed to be an American before long. But one of the things that I want to talk about, which is the primary thing, is this whole concept of why we hate immigrants in this country, why this nation seems to revile immigrants, and more importantly, why it is all around the world. This isn't just a U.S. phenomenon. You see it happening everywhere. And it's a false doctrine that goes back to something beyond just the idea of racism and bigotry. It goes down into neoliberalism. And the very tenets of neoliberalism, which create the model of scarcity, to create the fake narrative that we're broke and that people are going to end up taking yours. So there's this need to feel like you're 3 inches above the pig slop, and there's this need to keep the other people out. Okay. And this has been going on for a very, very long time, and it's happening all around the world. But before we get there, I want to show you a couple headlines that started this, got this live stream going. This one right here, this is a big deal. You know, Trump comes out and says he's going to issue a executive order, to end birthright citizenship. This is something that's obviously going to terrorize an awful lot of people who are already petrified of this president. But we've got one more thing too, and this really, really piggybacking on this. This should scare the hell out of you too, right? We got 5,200 troops going down to the border during the election season, of course, in response to migrants coming up here. Now, a lot of this, in my opinion, just right off the bat, comes from a belief that we have fought long and hard for taking care of our own first. You hear about that with returning veterans. You hear about that with, hey, why are we sending money to Africa, or why are we sending money to this group or that group? And ultimately you realize that it's really not about money, is it? I mean, folks, we create this money like it's nothing. It's not about money. I really hope people understand what I'm saying here. This is not about money. This is about access to real resources. If it were just about money, you'd want the immigrants to come in, because immigrants are going to have to buy food. Immigrants are eventually going to have to buy clothing. They're going to need a place to live. They're going to need all kinds of stuff that boosts the economy. So it's not about money. Neoliberalism depends on scapegoats. Neoliberalism is a sister-friendly companion of fascism. And if you look back, all you have to do is go no further back than, I'm going to go ahead and do Godwin's law here and go back to Nazi Germany. Now, I'm telling you this not because I'm sitting here waving the Nazi flag, warning you, Nazi, not, no. There's some applicable parallels, but I'm not going to go there. But I am going to show you something, though. During that time period, what had happened? They created a scapegoat. The scapegoat got the nation rallied because the nation was suffering. The nation had been suffering from the Treaty of Versailles, from terrible, oppressive conditions that gave rise to a situation that allowed for an Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, in turn, leveraged all that to create nationalism, which then in turn was used to bolster the just demoralized feelings of the people of Germany. So you can see how easy it is to get wrapped up in this, because this is one of those things that happens when a country is completely and utterly depressed and is in economic turmoil. Now, look at the United States. You can sit there and you can see without any effort whatsoever that white privilege has been taking a big hit lately in terms of being called out, being out in the public, etc. Well, there are people out there that are white and that are suffering. And there are a lot of them. There are an awful lot of them. They can't get to the dentist. They don't have health care. They live in terrible conditions. And they look around and they see other people getting something. In their minds, they're getting theirs. The reason why they're suffering is because of them. So the self-perpetuating cycle, people on the left will mock those people that are suffering because they're white or because they're rednecks or because they're bigots or racists or whatever it is they are. Not realizing those people are just as poor and just destroyed as anybody else and have been lied to for just as long. And so now the immigrants come to town. And we're wondering why. We're wondering why suddenly we're going to go ahead and send troops down there, and we're going to go ahead and create this problem. And we're going to go ahead and revoke birthright citizenship, and we're going to do all these things that are just disgusting. But we wonder why. It's got to be just racism, right? It's just racism. It's just pure, unadulterated racism, right? No, that's the problem. And trying to get people on the left, much less on the right, to listen is like, seriously, it's almost enough to throw your hands in the air and say, to hell with it all. When you take away public spending on the people, and the only money that's in play is in the rich people's hands, and your existence is at their whim, every one of these myths and legends where we worry about getting money from the rich gets born. Every day we sit there and we realize that, oh my God, if we don't give them tax cuts, they're not going to give us jobs because we're at their mercy. But we've talked about this, haven't we? We've talked about this so much, it's almost to the point where you almost have to not want to get this, to not get this. You have to literally choose to not get this, to not get this. When you starve people of needed services, of needed healthcare, of needed access to life, to the American dream that you sell on TV that is nowhere to be found in their communities. And then you see people coming up here, and you have been as Democrats, you have been as progressives, you have been as Bernie-crats, you have been as Richard Wolff followers, you have been as Green Party people, talking about paying your fair share of taxes to pay for stuff. You've been doing this for a long time. And the right wing is saying, you're not taking our tax dollars to pay for things. And all of a sudden, these people that are other than us are coming up the border. Now, you've created this situation by fanning the flames of our hard-earned tax dollars. Haven't you? Look in the mirror, own it, accept it. This is part of our problem, right? We've done this. Because what does a taxpayer look like? It certainly doesn't look like an immigrant, does it? It certainly doesn't look like a homeless person, does it? It certainly doesn't look like these people, these other people. Now, when you think of a hard-earned tax dollar, you think of something else, don't you? Red, white, and blue, and apple pie, and baseball, farms, and wheat waving on the plains. You think about that. That's tax dollars. Those are taxpayers. So you've created this racist, xenophobic mindset that has been brought on by neoliberals, courtesy of neoliberalism, and has been fanning the flames of paying your fair share and all the other nonsense about the value of tax and why we've got to pay tax and what the purpose of a tax is. And here you go now. Now people are going to really pay for the lie. Now people are going to really suffer in the name of that lie. How many people will suffer? I don't know. How many people are already suffering? More than enough. We have the money, the pieces of paper to pay for every one of those immigrants, including every person in Appalachia Every person in every rust-belted city that has been abandoned by industry in the United States, we have enough money to make every one of them happy, healthy, and whole. Because we make money indefinitely. And there is no limit to the amount of money our federal government can create. The question is, do we have the real resources? Now, real resources are not just ours. They're productive capacity. They're the people. They're the rivers, streams, mountains, ores, minerals, you name it. And we, as we like to say so often, are the richest country in the world. You know, you think to yourself, how is it possible that we could be so smart yet so fucking dumb? So smart yet so fucking dumb. Look at this. The USA doesn't need to tax or borrow to spend. Real resources, inflation, and distribution inequality matter. The rest is bullshit. Do you get this? The rest is bullshit. When you hear people say, my hard-earned tax dollar, you know that they are helping carry the water for every racist bullshit line you've ever heard in your life. Every xenophobic lure has come from that exact lie. Every single one of them comes from that lie. And you know who's laughing? Let me tell you who's laughing. These people are laughing. They just hope they can keep it all up so that we don't ever wake up, you know? But what happens if the people actually woke up? What happens if the people actually woke up? Think about this. I ask you this because I don't think people really will. Look, I'm watching my friends, lots of them too, by the way, putting all these posts about, now you know why I'm Dem-enter. Gosh, now you know why I'm Dem-enter. Vote blue. And then you hear the Greens saying the same shit. Man, it's all about building the Green Party, man. You got to vote for that corporate fascist, blah, 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 warmongering, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, well, you can't vote for them, the Republicans, because they're fascists, blah, blah, blah. This is, party politics is really fucking our minds. I don't care about your fucking party. Your party can burn in hell for all I care. Every one of your parties can burn in hell. It takes the people waking up. If you're in a party that right now is currently running around telling everybody, we got to reduce the deficit, and it's telling everybody, we got to cut, oh my God, the national debt's going to kill us. And if they're running around saying, well, how can we afford this? By God, how can we afford it? We're going to have to cut the military here to spend there. You know what? Cut the military for all sorts of reasons, but don't you dare act like we're going to run out of pieces of paper to pay for the fucking military because you're not willing to learn. Did he go there? Yes, I went there. Mic drop. Guys, stop the low-hanging fruit bullshit partisan politics. There is a caravan of people coming up here. Are they good people? Are they bad people? I don't know. Is your neighbor a good person or a bad person? I don't know. The bottom line is people are fleeing persecution, whatever. Let's say they're coming here to make Spanish the national language of the United States. Who gives a shit? That's not what this is about. That's the distraction. The real issue is that we have to share the real resources of this country. And so when people say, well, we got to start bringing the jobs back to the United States so that we can start making stuff again, that's nationalism. Donald Trump salutes you. Donald Trump loves you. Because here's the thing. Other countries now will trade their pieces of paper for our mountains, our streams, our effort, our goods and services, our oil, everything that we create here. They'll trade their pieces of paper for our hard-earned work and sweat and all of our actual real resources. Now imagine this. Let's pretend for 5 seconds that the United States was a silo. There was no way out. There was no way in. And all we had, whatever resources we had, were all trapped within the bounds of this United States shaped silo. Eventually, you're going to run out of real resources. Eventually, you will run out of real resources, and you're going to have all kinds of problems. So when you look at imports versus exports and things like that, you need to think to yourself, what is our priority right now? And what does the rest of the world want to do? It's not really always up to us. We don't always get to be the decider of what goods and services people want. And again, they're trading pieces of paper for our chunks of mountain, for our buildings, for our clothes, for our whatever. If we're going to be the one that exports, that's what we're doing. Where we want their pieces of paper. Think about what I'm saying. We want their pieces of paper in place of our actual goods and services. Do you know what a blessing it is to be a net importer sometimes? But because we feel like there's a scarcity thing, and because the friggin' neoliberals, the worst of them, have planted this idea of a UBI because of automation and all that stuff, they are further exacerbating the wealth gap. They're further exacerbating the scarcity narrative, and that is further exacerbating the fear of immigrants. It is the most appalling thing to see our own movement being complicit in facilitating this, all the while screaming and yelling, we've got to be good to the immigrants, not realizing that they are literally holding a gun to these people's heads by this bullshit that they're peddling. From tax dollars to we got to bring the jobs back, to not understanding that we have plenty of good jobs here, we're just not doing them. I mean, go through your neighborhood sometime. Tell me how many of you are living in a pristine neighborhood that is ecologically sustainable and is actually beautiful. Honestly, I guarantee you, if 90% of you are going to tell me that your place is just beautiful and there's nothing, I'm going to say bullshit. Bullshit. There's so much work not being done right now because we don't have pieces of paper. And because somebody has prioritized the idea of inflation, here, let me put Stephanie's back up here again, because somebody's put the idea of inflation above that of actual equality. Freaking moron. I mean, this is the stuff, man. You know, and Ayn Rand infiltrated us many, many moons ago, this libertarian logic, and God bless the left. They want to somehow or another bring in these libertarians and act like we're all on the same page. But let me tell you, it's bullshit. Do you realize the idea of rugged individualism is just absolutely ridiculous in a society? Cooperation. Now, look, whether you like co-ops or not, I'm not, whatever. I'm not here to, this is not about that. But to not understand where the US dollar comes from and to allow them to act like we got to imagine the audacity. Folks, I want you to see my face when I say this. Imagine the audacity of a politician telling you we've got to take care of our own first, fueling the scarcity narrative. Imagine them telling you we don't have enough money to pay for these things. And these people, I swear to God, as we go into this election season, these folks are going to sit there and tell you to vote blue no matter who. And many of these assholes, yes, let me say it really crystal clear. Many of these assholes are going to sit there and try to tell you that we've got to raise taxes to pay for stuff. And then on the same breath, they're going to act like that somehow or another, we've got to help immigrants. See, it's a split personality of full metal stupid on one side. And on the other side, the can't win because now you sound like an idiot because you can't answer the question, how are you going to pay for the immigrants? Do you understand this? And then all the while, there's Tex down there and he's picking his teeth. Goddamn, some bitch coming up from south. What the hell they think they're going to do? Ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Some bitch make better decisions. Some bitch. Where's my gun? Chauncey, go abolish my gun. I got some immigrant to take care. Folks, I'm telling you right now, it's our problem. We're creating the environment for this situation. It just couldn't be more straightforward. Once you understand that we have got resource abundancy, and once you realize that paper dollars don't mean jack diddly except to you and I, because they don't make it down to us, because they're not making it down to the guy in Appalachia, because they're not making it down to the people in Flint, Michigan, because they're not making it down to the people in Compton, because they're not making it down to the people. You get the point I'm making here. It's not that dollars are scarce. They create them in thin air, but they spend them to a very, very small sphere of people. The first dollar gets spent at very, very, very small radius. The distribution of that first spent dollar, where it's worth the most before it's taxed and stepped on 20 times. Think about this. I want you to think about this. Right here, keep it real clear. Once the government spends that first dollar, and you're screaming for that first dollar to get taxed 70, 90%. Let's raise the tax to 90%. That first dollar, now all of a sudden 10% makes it to the economy at best. And then it gets stepped on again when it gets taxed the next time. And then you're down to percentages, teeny weeny percentages. And you wonder why when the Mexicans are coming up, or you wonder why the Costa Ricans, or you wonder why Salvadorans, or you wonder why people from all over the world, Syrians, Yemenis, you name it, Africans, Somalis, you wonder why immigrants from all over are struggling. And it doesn't take much to figure out that if we're not spending big time on the people at the bottom, the distribution model is so lopsided that you're always going to have people hating each other. You will always have people hating each other because they're fighting over table scraps. Guys, this is like the no joke zone. I am over the proud, arrogant people of our movement that say that they're going to raise taxes to pay for things. I am literally tired of you. You've worn out your welcome. You're hurting people. You're not helping anyone. And all your self-congratulatory claptraps, all that. You are harming people with your rhetoric. You may mean well, and if you do mean well, listen to me. Heed my words. This is not out of some, I don't get anything for this. God damn it, I want to see people made whole. I want to see you effective. I want to see us win. And by us, I don't mean just Democrats or Republicans. I mean the 99%, including your enemy, the teabagger. I want him winning too. I want him not to hate people anymore, because it's no longer a matter of he's thinking that you've got to rob Peter to pay Paul. Once you understand that's a lie, the rest follows suit. I'm telling you right now. Yes, there will always be bigotry. Yes, there will always be people judging people that are different. But we can afford the education to help people understand the people that are different. Autism currently is still not understood. It's an example of otherness. Alcoholism is another example of otherness. Mental disorders such as bipolar disorder is another case of otherness. These are all things that are lumped, they're stigmatized, and they're used against people. People that have served their term in jail and need a new lease on life. This is the same stuff over and over and over again. When will you learn? When will you choose to win? I say this in love. Friends, people are going to die from this. This lie is lethal. And for everybody that wants to run off in the woods and permaculture, this, that, and the other, that's a great lifestyle. Knock yourself out. But I'm warning you right now, that is not the solution to this problem. That's Grizzly Adams' version of, hey, I'm going to live in solitude and grow some, berries. And that's fine. That's a personal decision, and I support it 100%. But that is not a federal policy that solves America's problems with immigration and with inequality. If you want to buy Bitcoin, do it. Knock yourself out. I don't recommend it, but do what you do. Do you. But it is not the solution. It is not the solution. It is not legislatable. It is not something that is going to provide fruit for all. There are many things that we can do, but pretending like your hard-earned tax dollars are required for a nation that creates it out of thin air every time it keystrokes and spends, for you acting that way, you are literally the one that's making those people that are coming up from the South have to deal with the United States military. Because Donald Trump has a leg to stand on, because based on your words, yours, and all of Donald Trump's supporters believe it, in order to take care of them, they're Mexicans and them, they're immigrants, we're going to have to raise taxes. We're going to have to take my hard-earned tax dollars, and I don't have enough to even get my damn teeth filled. You're going to have to take tax dollars from them to pay for that. Shame on you for carrying that message forward. Shame on you. Shame on you for talking about reducing the deficit. Shame on you. Shame on you for ever supporting anyone that supported the word PAYGO. Shame on you for ever advocating for a balanced budget amendment for a government that is nothing like a household budget. A government that creates its own currency from scratch every time it spends and deletes currency every time it taxes. Shame on you for doing that, because that right there, my friends, is why 5,200 troops are heading to the border right now. I'm sure there's a lot of proud people out there that don't like what I just said. Pride goeth before the fall. I'm telling you right now, if you want to be effective here, you need to understand the economics of this story. It's about access to real resources, and it's about understanding that not only can we take care of our own homeless, not only can we take care of our own returning veterans, not only can we take care of our own poor and not make them poor anymore and eliminate working poor from our vocabulary altogether, but we can also be compassionate and the light on the hill and welcome these immigrants to our nation without all this bullshit. And you know what? If Donald Trump does something stupid to sign an executive order or something, that, whatever, I don't know all the legality there. I'm not going to get into it. It's not important. Donald Trump signing an executive order to end birthright citizenship. Just know that the reason why people think that's even a decent idea on the right, and some people that are following Q and other things, okay, is because they don't understand economics. And sadly, the left has played a real big part in why they don't. You want to know why they always say the problem with socialism is you always run out of someone else's money? Because the left demands that taxes pay for spending. That's why. If the left would embrace the truth about economics, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on. It's no longer other people's money, and you know it, and you shoot that thing down, bam, done. But instead, we got to carry it on. We got to keep it going, because that's what we've always said. Mama said, well, Mama was wrong. Medulla oblongata, Mama was wrong. Mama was wrong. Be in the victory, my friends. Be in the victory. We're going to have to deal with this tactically. And when I say tactically, that means short term. There's a short-term situation here that we're going to have to contend with, because we haven't done our job teaching economics to everyone. We are now stuck in a short-term cycle where we've got to deal with the very real possibility of violence at the border. Very real possibility of violence in America, because people are getting wrapped up in this racist versus this racist versus that racist, instead of understanding it's the distribution of economic wealth in this nation that is brought on by this ignorance we perpetuate in the idea that the tax dollar is paying for stuff. I'm telling you. There's an article by Raul Carrillo and Jesse Meyerson called the dangerous myth of the taxpayer dollar. It's on Splinter. I'll ensure that you all have a copy of that article. But let me just tell you, if you keep it going, if you see people doing this, you need to be the one. You need to stand in the gap. You need to be the one and say, that's not true. That's not true. The words you're saying are weapons against the people that can least afford to defend themselves from the lie you're telling to try to defend them. We raise taxes on the wealthy someday because we're wanting to end income inequality. We're trying to change wealth inequality, etc. But the way you really, really drive a sword into wealth inequality is to spend money right at the regular people. Take away the desperation, take away the anger, take away the fear, take away the anxiety, take away all that. And they stop hating each other. They stop seeing each other as the enemy. But unfortunately, I have a feeling with this election coming up, people aren't going to do that. They're not going to remember that, and they're not going to think about that. They're going to choose their party, and they're going to go, vote blue, vote green. And that's a real shame, isn't it? And when these immigrants are faced with Donald Trump and the army of the United States of America, remember, they represent you too. That's your army. They're doing this. Doesn't matter whether you say, I didn't vote for him. No, you ran around telling everybody taxes paid for stuff. You had a part to play. Don't act like you're innocent. You're not. You've been lied to. Very much so. Neoliberalism has been spread through everything from sitcoms to newspapers to every media outlet. Politicians, academics, universities, you name it. Hell, even our churches and even our clubs, even other leftists and other progressives. This lie is pervasive. And it's going to require an extreme pushback from us, the woken, the people that get it. You're going to have to do it differently. Sometimes you're going to have to say it really nice. Sometimes you're going to have to say it really gentle. Sometimes you're going to have to meet the people right where they are at their point of need to tell them, hey, listen, this is how it works. And other times you're going to go, bam, right upside their noodle and say, yo, snapperhead, eyes up here. It just depends on your audience. It depends on whether they need a cold bucket of water on the head, whether they need a wet willy in their ear, or whether they need a spooning session. But one way or the other, it's our job to reach every single person. Every single person. Not one can be left behind in this. And whether it be through my method, which is a little bit more brash, or whether it be in somebody else's technocratic method where they walk you through step by step with every dollar going across the ledger and showing people, or whether it be somebody who's just kind of, the operational reality, Rocco. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. It takes all of us, all of our styles, all of our ways to get this message out because it's too important. Because people will die. And it is our job, since we know this, and you do know this, you can no longer claim innocence. It's your job now to make it right. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. I hope you learned something today. Have a good one, everyone.